Okay, all rise to the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilman Alvarez is absent. Councilman Cullen.
Here.
Councilwoman Eckhart.
Here.
Councilwoman Hudak.
Delayed.
And Supervisor Hay.
Here. Notation of the exits in the front and the rear and electronic device, please put it on vibrate. Since we only have 3 members and a 4th will be coming, I'm going to ask that we put the work session item on discussion employee handbook off until that person arrives, and we'll go to the regular portion of the meeting to start. Is that okay with everyone?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I make a motion to enter the regular portion of our meeting.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
First one is correspondence. Waive the reading of it.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is approval of the voucher list. It's $652,960.36. So move for discussion.
I'll second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Setting meeting dates and public hearings. All meetings will be held at 1360 Route 22, Brewster, New York, at 7 p.m. unless otherwise noted. Now, I know summertime, it's much slower with what happens in front of the board. So I know some of us, the second meeting has to be held because we have to do the financials like we're doing tonight. So tonight, I'm just going to call off the one date, if it's okay with everyone that's at least here. If not, we'll wait for another party. The Thursday, July 6, 2017, which is scheduled, not the schedule, because based on what we have on this agenda tonight, there's nothing to come forward for that meeting.
That's fine.
If there's a need for it, we can always call for a special meeting and have it.
Yep, so the meeting will be the 20th.
So the only meeting scheduled for this month, for July, will be Thursday, July 20th.
It's fine.
So-
Or as needed,
Or
Pardon?
unless, right,
unless needed. Yep.
Yes.
unless something comes up. or
We
it's
said that
or-
previously.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Waive the reading of the budget transfers.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Let's have a brief discussion with the town attorney. Okay. Resolution 5 is a bond for the Brewster Heights Water District. It's a resolution authorizing the replacement of an electrical control panel at the Brewster Heights Water District Water Treatment Plant, authorizing the issuance of serial bonds of the town of Southeast, Putnam County, New York, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $115,000 pursuant to the local finance laws to finance said purpose, and delegating the power to issue bonds, anticipation notes, in anticipation of the sale of such bonds to the town supervisor. So move for discussion.
I'll second.
Unfortunately, the Brewster Heights Water District is one of the older ones that we have in our town, and from time to time, it needs some upgrades, sometimes major. $115,000 in this case is minor. So it's not minor in a sense, but it's minor compared to what it could be. So this is to authorize such. So move for discussion.
Second.
I thought we,
All in favor?
Oh, we
Aye.
already had a second.
Huh?
We already had a second.
Yep.
Oh, did we? Okay.
Yep.
Here, second.
Third.
Third.
Okay, Liz, what we did is, we jumped over to work session, because that's gonna take discussion amongst the board, and we're just doing a regular portion of the meeting.
Very good, thank you.
And we're at number 6. Next is a bond resolution for the Star Ridge Water District. This bond is a resolution authorizing Star Ridge Water District emergency water distribution line replacement, authorizing the issuance of serial bonds of the town of Southeast, Putnam County, New York, in an aggregate principal amount not to exceed $63,000 pursuant to local finance law to finance said purpose, and delegating the power to issue bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the sale of such bonds to the town supervisor. So move for discussion.
second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Number 7, it's a resolution to increase capital cost, Peaceful Hope Water District. As you know, a few weeks ago, we had a public hearing on this matter. The bottom line is it's going to authorize the spending up to $3.6 million for the water district. And of course, we're going to do actually, we only need 3.4. We're requesting 3.6 because once you ask for one amount and you go a penny higher, you gotta come back and do it again, so we're gonna start with the 3.6, hopefully not to exceed probably 3.4, and we're doing everything to try to save money, and we go from there. So move for discussion.
I'll second it.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Number 8 is a resolution amending town fee schedule for alarms. Resolved that the supervisor and the town clerk be and hereby are authorized to make such modifications to the 2017 fee schedule to implement the amendments to the town code relating to alarm permits and fees for false alarms. And be further resolved that the town clerk be and is hereby authorized and directed to publish the amended fee schedule on the town's website, and B, circulate such amendment fee schedule to the affected town departments. So move for discussion.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Number 9 is an amending the town fee schedule, and this one's for the highway department. Now therefore be resolved that the supervisor, town clerk, be hereby are authorized to make such modifications to the 2017 fee schedule to implement the amendments to the town code relating to highway department fee schedule, and be further resolved that the town clerk be and is hereby authorized and directed to publish the amended fee schedule on the town's website, and B, circulate such amended fee schedule to the affected town departments. So move for discussion. Is there a second?
I'll second
Discussion? All in favor?
it. Right.
Aye.
Okay, believe it or not, we're almost into July. I can't believe how fast this time has gone. It's unbelievable. So, the budget, all I can say is, right now, coming into July, which is almost halfway through the year, this is up until May, we're on schedule. There's no craziness this year. I'm not gonna say a word about one of the other ones, because that can go crazy, but everything right now is running good. We'll take public comment at the end of the meeting, if you don't mind. Now we're going to go back, with permission of the board, to the work session, discussion, employee handbook, employment of relatives. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we received some documentation, well, it's dated yesterday, but I received it today by email from one of our town employees. Why we discussed this evening, we can use anything but the person's name or sibling's name, etc., as we discuss it. It can be a department, but just don't use names. Okay. This had been requested that we look into. And believe it or not, I searched quite a few towns in our area, and not everyone has this. And I want to thank the town of Kent, one of the few that have this law to put in front of us for discussion. So, this that I just handed you, I don't want you to read this now.
Right.
Because this is not going to be the only discussion on it. We're going to start the discussion tonight.
Right.
Then I'd like you to read the input from this person. We'll get more details. So I wouldn't say it's a simple matter. I've noticed for years, sometimes, you look in the old days when I was a kid, I wanted to work for the town, but, so-and-so worked for the town and their kid worked here or someone else worked there. So there's a concern about how we hire employees. And I didn't even realize until this has come up about how many people in this town are related in some way or another. Now,
Deliverance.
Will's laughing, I'm laughing too. So at any rate, actually, one of the former supervisors' wife had worked for the town for many years. Went from one department when she worked for the previous supervisor. Then when that person became supervisor, she went to work for the courts. And of course, if that took place based on what is not proposed, again, this needs a lot of work, which we'll start discussing this evening. But if that happened, that person, had she been working for the town and the husband got elected, it's going to create some sticky situations. So why we discuss this, let's try to come up with as many scenarios as to how do we overcome that if it happens. So let's say, again, that person. Who was here first? That person actually was on the town board. I'd have to go back to the record to see who was here first. Because the husband was a town board member, then he became supervisor. She had worked for the town as the previous supervisor, and then she worked for the courts. So you'd have to see who came first. And this is pretty tough. It says that one of them would have to be, quit, not be fired, but one of them would have to quit. So let's discuss some of what is in front of us and just begin the conversation and see where it leads to. Okay?
Is there a formal proposal in front of?
No, this here, I put together for the work session, again, we got this from the town of Kent.
Uh-huh.
Just something to put on the table, because, instead of just going into it fresh and, recreating the wheel, so to speak, but not many towns have a policy like this,
Okay.
so stuff to.
I just would like to know, Will, if you could look into this in terms of any conflicts with existing law? In other words, as far as, is this something that a current employee would be able to say is an issue because they hold a position, it's, a deprivation of a position they held, et cetera?
Well, I think, I wouldn't even have to do any heavy research to say that if somebody's in that position right now, and we were to adopt something that, call it an anti-nepotism statute or something like that, I don't believe that you could force one of those people to quit, or if you were to fire them unless they're an employee at will, I think you'd have a problem.
So
But if it's a policy that's to be applied prospectively. I'm sorry. If it's a policy that's meant to be applied prospectively, I think that it is something that would be not contrary to law.
Okay. So what we're talking about then is something, according to what Will is just saying, and we're just talking about this right now, that initially would have to be something that is prospective and not retroactive.
Right.
Okay.
And my only concern with this, or my major concern with this, is what the appearance of impropriety. As long as positions, I'm not wedded to either side of this issue right now, but I think it's really important that every position be properly advertised. I know there are certain exceptions to this, but in general, and that the public have a fair shot at it, rather than, that's when you run into problems of of appearances, in my mind. So that's what I think is very important as far as enacting anything like this.
And the importance is if it gives the appearance of impropriety or it doesn't.
No, if it does, in other words, if something hasn't been properly advertised and on our website, and someone's relative is appointed, I
Got
think
it.
that gives the appearance of impropriety. Maybe it wasn't, I think this board is really good about due diligence and interviewing, but I still think that's what we want to avoid as a
Okay.
town.
So part of this policy, which I think we already have, is that there be advertising, recruitment, whatever you want to say, for any vacant positions or any positions which we may then, we might create a position. So the bottom line is, one of the starting points is a full and fair and open opportunity for
Yes.
whomever to occupy the position. And that position, then we have enough applicants or enough people coming in. And at that point, then that would avoid the appearance of impropriety. Gotcha.
That's what I believe, yes.
Okay.
And I think the problem could be is if one of the relatives is a supervisor of the person that works in the same department, that could be a problem if there's an issue with discipline or a complaint made.
Right, and that
That's
looks
what we
like-
would do in
Right.
our policy. Now, the person that wrote this letter on behalf addresses the two things. One is the difficulty it is sometimes to get people, especially in our rec programs, like they go to a basketball game, the person I think they said $6 to $7 an hour, and, as much as kids want money, $6 to $7, they'd rather not, watch the game instead, whatever. And what happens is, it's usually the person is there, brings their kid along to do this and has to keep score. Otherwise, there's no, true scorekeeper, whatever. So she touches on that, and then, of course, she also requested in this here that we consider a clause in there to grandfather people that are in there, which is, something that's already on the table. So again, read this. This is a good guideline to help.
And when you're referring to the guideline, you're talking about work session number 1.
Yes.
No, I'm referring, well, yes, that's,
Right.
we start.
Yep.
And this here fills in a
The
lot of
letter.
blanks that we don't see in our capacity sometimes. And
Well, I
the
think, we're a small town.
Yeah.
And meaning, we may not appear to be a small town, but in many respects we are, because someone, people who are interested in participating and/or for what this letter is referencing. So I get it.
Now, we have, one person who left, I think last year we recognized him here on the town board. He had started when he was 14 years old and stayed until he was 23 years old. And of course, I think maybe one of the siblings, may have come on during that point of time, because the last 9 years is a long time. And, he went off to college and he may have had a younger brother. They worked together for a year to teach him the ropes and whatever. And lifeguards, again, this here really gives us a more detailed description of what transpires and how difficult it is sometimes to get people to fill these positions. As you know, we've advertised for positions sometime for, 6 months and a year, and you don't get hardly any applicants, even to fill board positions. I mean, when I first got here, there was probably 3 to 4 people interested in each application. Now we're like waiting to the last second to get, more than the requirement. We had 2 positions open, and we only got 3 people that were interested.
I mean, you have here, I think what's very important is if it's a supervisory, I mean, that makes some degree, I mean, so a supervisory position with someone that you're monitoring in your supervisory capacity. The only other thing is, once again, just this is our first discussion regarding it, is the possibility of perhaps, and once again, I'll ask Will to look into any legalities of it, if we could say that there could be a waiver. So for instance, if it's a position, let's say one of these seasonal summer positions, where somebody is brought forth and it's a relative or something, that we could then institute a waiver. So however you want to do it, the majority of the board, or however you want to do it, they would like to have a waiver of the conflict policy. I'm just throwing it out there.
Right, and Liz, and in that case, though, you're not advocating that the position not be advertised or?
No.
Oh, no,
Right.
absolutely, no,
It
no,
would-
no, no.
right.
This is, from what I'm seeing, like, someone runs to the football game kind of a thing.
Right.
I mean, it's obvious that if we're gonna advertise for somebody to run to the football game, there's a great chance that we're not gonna have people running, breaking their legs to get here to make whatever is the minimum wage at the time. So, but no, I think everything should be advertised. There should be an anticipation for the seasonal jobs, such that we wouldn't just start in June if you want somebody who's a lifeguard. I don't think we do that. But, if we start in April and they don't have anyone by June,
Right.
and here comes this other person that says, or that person is the only applicant, then at that point, we can do that.
But I think we should do a better job advertising, because, everyone gets the penny saver at home, and you flip through it and you see a lot of towns advertise for lifeguards and stuff. Town of Kent's always in the Putnam Times advertising for a highway position. I mean, we hire highway people, and I didn't even know we were looking for someone. Next thing I know, we hired somebody. So I think we need to do a better job advertising so everyone gets the opportunity to apply for a position.
Well, if we had a policy on a town, would the highway department be held to that as well, since he's a separate elected official?
No, I think that well, first of all, if it's a,
Not the deputy, but if a person, like any position, any Teamster position, would they be bound by whatever we do?
I believe they would.
Okay.
I think, shouldn't it
If you're
be that?
establishing a policy, a
Policy for the
townwide
town.
policy, it's, just because the highway superintendent has the ability to pick that person independently of the town board, it is still a town policy, and I think must apply.
Okay.
I think everyone would want to get the most qualified candidate for the position. So the only way you do that is advertise. There's also social media, LinkedIn, and other things that we could do for nothing, but, take an ad and, like I said, the penny saver, the local or official newspaper, the Putnam Times. I see other communities do it all the time, even for board openings, and,
I would say, also, I don't think it would be this board's intent at all to micromanage that,
Right.
that when it's recreation, it still needs this same amount of, whether it's advertising or on social media, but that would be up to the recreation director at the time. So, those smaller positions, the summer part-time positions, they would follow our code, obviously, as they always have, but I certainly don't think this board wants to get into interviewing everyone and,
not lifeguards and
no,
part-time,
no.
And I think maybe the waiver too could be like, depending on the position, could require maybe the supermajority of the board, not just
Yeah.
a supermajority or
Yep, yep.
unanimous. I mean, to overcome something, which would be a good idea. So I guess what the best thing to do now is, now that we have this policy from the town of Kent, okay?
And that's work session 1.
Yep. So what I'm gonna do now for our next meeting, which will be in August, based on what I've heard this evening and the direction the board wants to go, start writing up a more detailed description and add to this here. Now, okay, we'll take what they have here. I don't agree with everything. I mean, again, it says here that a person would be discharged if they, were to marry and whatever. We'll kind of go around that, saying if that happens in the supermajority of the board, we transfer the employee to another department so they're not directly supervised, and then we'll work from there. Just so we have something in front of us to say, I'll give you much more time than, normal. I'll send it out 2 weeks beforehand, and then people can make comment on it.
Sure.
And then I get it back, and we'll add that to it, so we don't have to spend, tons of time here doing it. So we'll have,
Do you know how long this has been part of Kent, just out of curiosity?
I did not ask that question.
Could you, whoever you got it from? Because I'd like to just know, if it's been in effect and has been implemented for 5 years, what problems, if any, they've encountered.
Okay, I can-
If it's been, 6 months, then, so I'd like to just see, as long as we
But the other
took this
towns-
from them.
Yeah, the other towns don't have it, so.
Well, I think that the other towns might not have it, because there might be a lot of issues with it. I just, if Ken has had this for a long
Okay.
period of time, and they have experiences with it, then we can benefit from their experiences in crafting legislation, if indeed we want to do that.
I will
I think it'd
contact,
be also interesting to find out what the genesis of the Kent legislation or the Kent policy was. What caused it to be enacted.
Right.
There had to have been something that happened.
If there's really no other towns that have it.
And I think it would be helpful too. I think obviously the public will be allowed to comment and public hearing, and that'll be helpful as well, I think, to
Right.
fine tune this.
I mean, some communities do, I know it was in the paper Peekskill, which is a city and a big department, but they were gonna hire someone who was to be a firefighter in Peekskill, but his father was the fire chief, and they have some rule about that, so the father actually wound up retiring, so his son could get the job, so he wouldn't supervise him. I mean, but where I was a police officer in Eastchester, the police chief's brother and son are cops in Eastchester, which has been problematic. But in fairness to them, they took civil service exams and they did well and they were hired. So is it fair to deny them an opportunity that they're qualified for because a relative is already employed? I don't know. I
Yeah,
mean, bigger
well,
places like New York City, you have, NYPD, you could have, 10 brothers and sisters that are all working, but it's such a big department, you would never run into one another necessarily.
See, that's all the vagaries of the legislation then. So that's something.
Well,
that
there's,
we-
like, if you look at Kent, they have
Civil service.
a caveat, that is, if it's a competitive,
Right.
if it's a competitive class position, then the
Right.
civil service rules apply. So if they're in the top 3, if they take a test and they're in the top 3, regardless of the fact that there may be a relative in whatever, department they're applying for.
Right.
they
And I know
would be-
in Kent, there's a police officer whose father is a town board member, and he recused himself when he got hired. Who's this, or,
Eustace.
try not to use names.
well, it's public information, but,
Well, let them find it out
well,
themselves.
whatever, but the father recused himself when he was hired, but the son went through the civil service process, I guess, and was number 1 or whatever on the list, and he was hired, so, but that would be the exception that they have. The only thing in this letter that we got from this employee, which they talked about someone was denied a job because they were related to somebody. I mean, I'm not aware of anyone being denied a job.
Yes, I'll tell you after the meeting.
Okay.
We discussed it.
Well, I
Yeah.
wasn't part of any discussion on that, so I was a little, okay. You gotta refresh my memory then,
I will.
okay.
And I think too, it does protect the board in certain ways, depending on how everything is worded, but I remember, it must be 7 years ago in Putnam Valley, when the supervisor hired his significant other to be a confidential secretary, and it caused a lot of problems, even though he was completely within his rights to hire whom he wanted under they had no restrictions on
And I know
relatives.
the judge in Cold Spring, his wife is his court clerk, which seems a little bizarre too, but.
Just show that to them for a second.
No, I
Okay,
know.
so let me just ask you guys a quick question. Definition of immediate family. I got a lot to work on to put this thing together for the next meeting. Definition of immediate family includes employee's spouse, brother, sister, parents, children, stepchildren, father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, brother-in-law, daughter-in-law, son-in-law, and any other member of the employee's household, which means if I lived in foster homes and, all my life, so, if I was a Hay and I lived in Able as the family, I mean, that would disqualify me. I find that, whatever, but we'll discuss it. Is there any others we need to add to that?
No.
What about
Holy
new
cow.
families? I
At
think
that
they're
point-
Holy cow.
I think they're allowing three.
Great-grandchildren.
Okay, so there's nothing to add to that at this point in
No.
time?
And there
Okay.
could be the possibility, I don't see it happening here, but it could in the future, as far as marriage, if two employees wind up getting married that met at work, I mean, that happens, then that becomes a problem, but as long as they're in two different departments, I guess it's all right, but.
Well, that's something
Well, they
that
do
discuss,
address it.
but in this,
Right, I know, but
in this one, in their
Yeah.
policy, of course, that's not
Right.
allowed, which I think goes a
Well,
little bit too far.
right, I mean,
It's allowed just as long as they're not, one is not the supervisor of the other.
Right,
Yeah, I know.
as long as one's not the supervisor of the other, right?
And if that happens, they'll try to move the person,
Yeah.
one people into another department.
But
Yeah.
unfortunately, we are a small
Right.
town, it's not like, we don't have too many departments, hopefully that won't happen, but you never know, it's possible. It could.
Bigger than Ken.
Okay, so at any rate,
Yeah.
I got a lot to work on. We'll make modifications, put the suggestions, and then we'll add and subtract to them as we go. So with that, we'll take public comment. Seeing none, I'll take town board comment.
I would just like to quickly report on going on this past Tuesday to a county meeting on consolidation, which is something Governor Cuomo is pushing for. There was not much, or if any, public comment, and our suggestions are due within 6 weeks. So I just wanted to apprise the board. My committee that I'm working on is major government consolidation. And actually other towns have other possible saving shared services that they're looking into. So I just wanted to let you all know. It was also suggested that this possibly be put off a year because 6 weeks is a pretty fast timeline to get, it's really pretty unrealistic to have much in the way of savings. It was also very interesting because for the most part, every town agreed that the biggest savings would be within school districts, and that they had requested that the county work with the school districts on this as well. So it was an interesting meeting. It was pretty short. There will be another meeting in July, so.
Not just on the shared services.
The what?
On
Shared
shared
services.
services. Shared services.
Because
or
the supervisors,
Or consolidation.
the supervisors have met, and
Right.
we drafted a letter, which we all agreed upon the wording of it, but I never got it for my signature. It was supposed to go here, 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 and here. I never got to see the letter. So I don't, it's probably hanging out there, but we all pretty much agreed to one letter to send to the county executive, making the recommendation, of course, to the schools, and what does she think? What does the county think? That's what we need to know as well.
And the sewer line along Route 6 from Danbury to possibly the Village Brewster was raised. I have to say, although we have some competent people who live in Southeast on that committee, I'm sorry that someone from this board isn't on the committee because I think it profoundly affects this town, one way, for better or for worse. So I am sorry about that. And I did speak up about it with my own opinions, which I represented as my own, not as this board. So just so you know about that. But I do wish that one of us was on that board.
Well, Tom LaPerche
Yes, yes, Tom is.
Tom is the planning board chairman.
And legislator Yonke is on it, I believe, as
Yes.
well. But I still think most of the other towns, Kent, I know, is talking about a sewer district for Lake Carmel and their commercial areas, and then Route 6 in Mayapack and Union Place. I do know Maureen is on the board, I mean, on the, you know, the conversation in the board as far as the committee discussing Kent.
You mean Maureen Fleming?
Fleming, yes, the supervisor of Kent, and I believe Kenny Schmidt is on the other committee on Mahopac and Route 6. So I just find it, I do think it would be a lot better if someone from this board were on it, so that's my 2 cents.
Well, one quick question on that matter. Can the
None of us were
county,
invited.
can the county create a district and just give it to the town? I mean, if the county is bringing this from A to Z, not including the town in any way, if they
It'd be a
create.
county district. They can create
No,
special districts.
but can they just say, it's your problem, Southeast?
No.
It would be theirs to maintain, theirs to do whatever. Because I'm hearing some things today that, like, we may be getting a bill of some kind, which I don't know if it's true. And I gotta look into something with the CFA grant that was received by the village last year for a couple $1 million. I gotta look in there, maybe a little asterisk with that I have to look into.
Well, I think it's really important because the county has applied for a $2.4 million CFA grant for engineering for this project. They were considering that there are 40 properties in the proposed sewer district, yet the cost is estimated right now at $12 million. So you can imagine how expensive without grants it would be prohibitive for property owners to join this. Even at the count we did, Lori Bell was nice enough to do a count for me, and there were about 70 properties that had frontage on Route 6. So this is really, you know, it could be problematic, especially if we have to do any kind of matching funds for grants. So I think it's really important that we do look into it and make sure we're not on the hook for any money.
Will, could you find out what exposure, if any, the town would have?
Certainly. Right at the top of my head, I don't see how the county's gonna,
Well, let me look and see what happened with the last CFA
I mean,
CFA grant.
what happens is, a district is really a taxing mechanism.
Right.
And it seems to me that their proposal would be to create a sewer district, would be a county sewer district, which they would,
It's okay.
you know, float bonds to pay for the construction, and the individuals, the people that end up paying for that would be property owners within the town of Southeast, within the district, but it's not the town's tax bill that is billing them, it's a county tax bill.
Well, I'm hoping that's the way it works.
Did
And
they even
Well, it
identify any
sounds
properties
logical.
yet? What properties would be in it?
Well, the county said, I think, 40. and-
44, I think.
And you guys came up
It
with
was 70 or
70
Are they gonna
71.
be forced though to?
Now, it would be required, if they create a district on that stretch of road from here to here, it's, what's the word? They'd have to pay toward the capital costs of the project, because they could benefit at some point in time, but they would not have to actually pay for a usage fee and hook up to it, like my old store.
Right.
Many of the areas out there, they've had septic forever. So would it pay them to hook up? No, but if the line runs in front of their house, they have to pay
Right.
toward the capital cost.
Right.
Which is gonna be probably 75% of the
And
bill.
that's pretty standard on all
Yeah.
special districts.
Right.
Peaceable Hill, there are
Yep.
people
Right.
that pay capital costs that don't get water.
Right, right.
So it's just,
I was
I mean-
told that there were no county special districts right now. I don't know if
I don't
that's-
think there are any in Putnam, but there certainly
Right.
are in Dutchess. I know that I was engaged about 20 years ago to establish a sewer district in the town of Beekman, and the county has a sewer and water district, and they came in and basically took it over. So the work that the town of Beekman had done was, you know, they felt they had a more comprehensive countywide plan for financing, constructing, and maintaining sewer plants. In this case, it was a development that had gone bust, and there were people that were living there, but there was nobody running the sewer district, or the sewer facility. So the county stepped in after the town was halfway done and took it over, and the town was like, thank you very much.
Hopefully?
Pokeway.
I know
And
exactly
in
where.
Westchester County, the sewer districts are run by Westchester County. The sewer plants are all Westchester County sewer plants. So it could be done, I guess.
Okay.
On the bright side, when I mentioned that if the Route 6 area was heavily developed, although we've had a shovel-ready project for 6 years, that it really, in many ways, because we don't share sales tax, it does not benefit the town. And Bruce Walker did say that he was not against sharing sales tax in certain circumstances. So
Well,
I wish I had it on the record.
County Executive Bondi said that to me one time. I put forward 3 sales tax share on revenue proposals in my career on the legislature. I got 3 votes at first, 4 to second, 5. Of course, I needed 6 because it was going to be vetoed by the county executive. I don't see it ever changing.
Right.
And ain't gonna happen.
Well, not for now.
Nah, you don't know how they operate.
I
The deputy
keep
county
plugging
executive
away.
doesn't have a vote.
I keep plugging away anyhow.
I was there for 19 years, trust me.
Yeah,
It ain't
so,
happening.
but,
Okay.
anyhow, that's the
Any other
update.
comment from anyone?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, July 4th is coming up. Town is having their fireworks, so
On the first.
July 1st, though.
July 1st, and under the circumstances, it's always a good time, so. And the other thing I'd like to say is, happy birthday to Lynn Eckhart. Her birthday is Saturday.
And happy birthday,
Happy
Liz
birthday,
Hudak's
Liz.
birthday
And
is
you
on
too.
Saturday.
We share the day?
We share the day, and my son
And
shares the
Steve
day.
Mattson.
And Steve Mattson, they're
And
every-
former Governor Pataki is the same day as you guys,
Oh,
too.
hers.
Yeah, but I think the
We
important
all
one
have the
is,
same day.
the important
Facebook's
one is
amazing, it all
Lynn.
pops
Yeah,
up.
Right, Lynn?
yeah, it's a very popular day.
We're the important one.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
Well, happy birthday to both of them.
Well, thank you.
Well, everyone's out here, I'll entertain a motion from,
All right, I'll do it.
seconded by,
Me. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.